Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the Brand Bite Podcast. I am so excited to have you here today and to be welcoming our guest, Taylor Smith. So Taylor is a business strategist, keynote speaker, community builder, and the host of the Power Table podcast and the Power Table Live conference. She's a 4X founder and has built and scaled multiple businesses across digital products, online education, coaching, and live events with a signature focus on recurring revenue and freedom-based growth. Taylor helps women entrepreneurs turn their expertise into profitable, scalable offers without burning out or playing small. And I actually met Taylor through a summit that she is hosting. And so I was so excited when she wanted to come onto the podcast today and talk to you guys about a topic that I feel is very, very important. But before we hop into that, Taylor, please tell us more about yourself, how you got into entrepreneurship in the first place. What has your journey been like?
Hunter, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. First of all, I'm so excited to be here, and I know this is going to be an amazing conversation. So, my journey into entrepreneurship was like many people, not necessarily planned. I only had one dream in life, and that was to be a teacher. And I achieved my dream of becoming a college professor at age 23. So I was a college professor at the same, basically walking in brand new at 23 years old. And most of my students were like the same age as I was, or they at least looked older than me. And I was frequently confused for a student. But I was so excited to be in that classroom. And unfortunately, it didn't take me very long, a few years, to realize I was incredibly underpaid and undervalued in public education. And so made the jump into corporate education. And while I actually really enjoyed working in corporate, at the same time, I was like, is this really it? Like, is this going to be my life? Is like teaching, doing curriculum design, and just like working on projects that really I had no control over. And even though I might have been good at it, it wasn't necessarily something that I could see myself doing for the rest of my life. And so I started dabbling in side hustles. I started building businesses. And then, like many people, when the pandemic hit, I actually was already working online, but I was in a situation where I thought I might lose my job. There were a lot of people getting laid off. And so I got very serious about my businesses very quickly. I was like, all right, I have to do something because I might lose my job. My coworkers are getting laid off. Only what happened was kind of the opposite, and my businesses took off and they were so incredibly successful so quickly that I started making 3 times my salary online. And I realized I was in a situation within about 4 months of the pandemic that I actually had to quit my job because I was working on my business in one room of my home, running to the other room, doing my Zoom calls for my corporate job and my corporate teaching position. And then in my 15-minute breaks in between calls, I would run back into the other room and work on my business for 15 minutes. And I'd be up till, 2 or 3 in the morning working on my business. And I was like, I have to stop. This cannot continue. So in 2020, I left my teaching career with this idea of I could always go back, and I never did. And here we are, 4 businesses later and over $1 million in small business sales for myself, having built a community that I absolutely love of other women in business. And it's just been an amazing journey.
Yeah, well, congratulations on such an amazing growth story. And I feel like the back and forth, right, between a corporate and then, running your own business is so common. I love that you were like, no, we're pulling the trigger now. We're kind of forced into it. It's like the walking the plank, kind of shoved off, like this is it. And I really, really love that. And you mentioned community being really important to you. You've built this amazing community of women. And I know community was one of the big things that we wanted to talk about today. Can you talk about what your process was like developing this community? Like, how did you start from being in such a corporate space into building the community that you have today in kind of the online business world?
Yes. So community took me a long time to realize that's what I was missing. I will say years, but I knew I was missing something. So my businesses were successful. I mean, I had more than one multi 6-figure business, And yet I was so incredibly alone because I was the first person in my family to do anything like that. The first person I knew, friends, family, coworkers, anybody, to build an online business. And then to also start monetizing with my personal brand. And I was like teaching about marketing and talking about small business online. And I had all these followers, and I didn't know a single person I could talk to about what I was doing. And it was like doing business the hard, slow way, the slowest, most painful way possible. And of course, now we have ChatGPT, so it's a little bit faster, but at the same time, I was stuck in this space where I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know who to ask. And so a few years in, after just like feeling that frustration for so long, I was like, you know what? Like, I've got to find some friends who get it because I've let go of a lot of people and friendships with people who just didn't get it. Um, but I haven't figured out what to replace that with. And so I basically like started like stalking girls on Instagram, like friends that I was like, I think this person's really smart and really cool. Maybe they'll be my friend, right? And I started going to conferences. This is kind of after the pandemic, but like putting myself in rooms with people. Like I would fly across the country and attend events, and I didn't know a single person there. That was terrifying, but I did it anyway, just because I was so desperate for community. And I ended up really creating the thing that I wished existed, that I wish I'd had years ago. And I will say that it took a while, right? Like community is one of those things. It's not an overnight marketing strategy for you and your business. And you really can't fake community. Like people can see through that. So you have to be very, very genuine in like, why do you want to connect with people and why do you care about it so deeply? And that's kind of how I got started. I basically was just like, hey, I will give away all of my knowledge. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm doing it one to one, right? I'm not coaching for free. But hey, if you're on my social media, if you're listening to my podcast, like I'll tell you everything you ever want to know. And I'll also help connect you to other people who are growing their business because I needed those connections too.
Yeah, well, the lonely boat that is oftentimes, especially when you go from corporate to running a business, especially in those early stages too, where you're like a solopreneur at that point, you're doing everything yourself. I completely resonate with that. And a number of other entrepreneurs that I've spoken to have felt the same way. And I feel like community is that thing that we all crave because you don't have built-in coworkers the same way you do, right, at a corporate position. And you don't have necessarily people who understand the nuances of operating a business versus what it's like to work a 9 to 5. I feel like you mentioned how you kind of let a number of friendships go as you transitioned. And I feel like we all kind of go through that. So anyone, if you're listening and are like, oh my gosh, like I feel like people aren't getting it, or maybe my friends, they don't feel as close anymore. This is normal. You just have to find a community of people who do understand, who are going through it. So as you are building, oh yes, please.
I was just going to say, like, a part of this is in you going through that journey of becoming an entrepreneur, whether that's part-time or full-time. And especially if you're building online and if you're leaving, your corporate job in the process, a big part of that is like you have to form a whole new identity. And no one tells you how to do that as an entrepreneur. And that's why you need community is no one else is going to like understand your identity because when you're in this corporate job, you really like identity is easy. You're like, oh, I'm a specialist who does this at this company, and it's easy to figure that out. But then when you move into a business, like who are you now? Like who's Taylor? Who's Hunter? And that's a process all on its own.
Absolutely. Well, you bring up like just having people around who understand. And I think also something too, like seeing examples. When you
Mhm.
grew up and all you saw around you was people doing 9 to 5, and then you're like, actually, I'm going to start a business, and you don't have any examples around, like, sure, you've got people on TV and stuff where you've got mega big influencers, right? But who are the people that you can have kind of like this, like a one-on-one conversation with, or be in their DMs and be like, yo, I cannot believe this thing happened. Please tell me this has happened to you too, because I don't know what to do here. Like that's so, so important. And you talked about the difference too, like in operating an online business. And I think that that's a really key part here because building community in person versus building community online are two very different beasts. So what has that been like for you?
I love an in-person community, and I think that if you're online, it should be your goal to get in some in-person rooms in this year. Like in-person events are back. Definitely go for that. But we're not all in a place where we can do that all the time. So find ways to show up online. And some of my biggest supporters and strongest allies in my business have been people that I met online that now I talk to literally every single day. People I met on Threads, someone who, I pitched to be a guest on their podcast and now we talk all the time, or I met them on LinkedIn. So no, like not everyone's going to become like that lifelong best friend or that ideal client, but if you don't start talking to people in the first place, you don't even get to that point, I think.
Yeah, and how do you go about kind of reaching out and starting those conversations? I know I feel like especially with sometimes online businesses, it's easier to start one if you're a little more introverted. And so the idea then of, oh shoot, I still have to make these connections and build community. I thought that I was getting away from this. What tips would you offer to people, or, anything that you've learned in your experience of, reaching out and kind of doing the first touch point?
I'm so glad you asked this. And it's so funny that you said that because I hadn't thought about it. But now I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense because so many of the online entrepreneurs I know, they are all introverts. It makes perfect sense now. So community building, I think, follows four archetypes. And this is what I've seen with myself as a community builder, and then also working with a lot of clients and people I know who are also either very plugged in or they are leading their own communities. And there are four archetypes. The first is connector. I'm a connector. I love connecting people to other people. Like that's my jam. The next is recommender. So a lot of introverts fall into the recommender category. You are really good at recommending tools, resources, products, ways of doing things. That can be a great way, an entry point into community connection for introverts. Then there's cheerleaders, which are people who are like always going to support, always in the comments, the hype girl. And that's a role that is so needed right now. And I see a lot of cheerleaders discount themselves like, oh, I'm not really, super knowledgeable about things, but I could be a cheerleader. And I'm like, no, like we need that. Please be that person in the world. And then the last one is motivator. So someone who is not necessarily the cheerleader, but who is like the person who's giving you that kick in the butt every day to like get up and do your workout or get up and like work on your business that day. And she's like, let's go freaking get it. So picking out the roles of those four archetypes that you do naturally. So think about how do you already do that for people like in your friends network or for your coworkers, and translating that into your business. Because instead of trying to do something that you don't feel good at or that doesn't come natural and easy to, I want you to pick something in your zone of genius and make the way that you engage with people something that is already a strength that you have.
That is so good. And I had never heard of these four archetypes before as the ones for community building. So I think that is so, so smart to really look back at like, what are you already doing well, right? What comes
Yes.
naturally?
So I
Yeah.
have a friend who does this so well. She's a recommender. So she is always posting the book she reads, and she will send people DMs based on like, hey, I saw that you posted that article on that topic. If you liked that topic, if you're interested in that, here's a book I read about it. She's really, really good at that kind of recommender. She also has like a whole ongoing Instagram stories series where she recommends soups to people. So like it doesn't necessarily always have to be something about your business that starts the conversation. For me as a connector, I want to connect other people together. So I will often tag people in comments. So for example, if you were creating a post about your podcast episode, I might tag someone in the comments and be like, hey, Lindsay, you have to listen to this podcast episode that Hunter put out because it's so good and it's exactly what we had a conversation about the other day. So
Mhm.
I'm building on relationships when I do those things. It's not random. And that's the thing about community when I said that you have to be honest, like people can see right through it. Like these strategies will fall flat if they aren't real, if you're not genuine in them. So it's paying attention to, how do you talk to people and building those relationships one at a time.
I really like that you bring up the example of like your friend's series, even, or how even in your interactions on social media, you're still building that community. And it really lends itself to this topic that you had brought up before we started chatting here on the show about community building content specifically, which is, again, another term that I hadn't heard of before. Like, I know of sales content, but what exactly is community building content and how can you leverage it?
Yes, I think that most businesses, if not all, have the opportunity to connect people within their audience to each other. And the reason this is so valuable is because if you can make people feel seen and valued, they will buy from you more often and they will stick around. And if you can make them feel like they belong to something that is bigger than them and bigger than their one-to-one connection to you, they will stick around even longer. They will buy even more. So imagine that they're not just like, oh, I really like Hunter. I really like the podcast that Hunter puts out. Instead, they are like, I love everything Hunter does, and I've met so many cool people through Hunter. Or I learned so many other things from the people in that community. So what we're doing is we're actually creating a sense of belonging to a mission or to a circle of people who have shared goals and interests. And we can actually see examples of this. Nike is a really good example if you want to go with a product-based business of a community that's built around shared goals, right? Like getting fit and like achieving the impossible and setting these crazy health and fitness goals. That's a really good example of that. So when it comes to content, you want to think about like, what are ways that I can get people to engage that would connect them not just to me? And I can share some very practical ideas for that, but I want to stop there and like ask you, does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I really love this idea too of how it's not just about like your interaction with the person, but their sense of belonging to something greater than just you and them. And if we think about obviously like humans, right? Like we are wired for social connection. And this is such an amazing way then to lean into what we are wired for naturally and leverage that and use it not just for your business and to make sales, but also for yourself as an entrepreneur. You know, like community is just as important as we talked about for us entrepreneurs too, even if it is between like you and a customer and a group of customers versus you and other peers. So I'm very excited actually to hear these examples. I'm very much an examples person. So please
I
hit
love
us
it.
with this.
I will. Yeah. And when I talk about community too, it's so multifaceted. Like if you're the planet Earth, around you, you have different planets and moons and the sun. And some of those people in your galaxy might be further ahead of you in business, and some of them might be further behind you. Some people you might be teaching who might be paying you as clients, and some people might be referrals, and some people you might be paying to learn from. And all of those people can benefit from you being in their community and them being in yours. So this is a very fluid, like way of thinking about community. It's not, I have a community with my friends and then I have a community that I sell to. It's going to be much broader than that because often those things overlap for most entrepreneurs. So let's get into some examples of community building content that will actually help you generate sales, right? So the first one I will say is if you have a paid membership or paid offer of some kind, I love to give context of like what kind of conversations are had in that paid membership. So something that I will do is I'll make a carousel or easy reel that's questions I answered in my community this month. I don't give the answers necessarily. I just say, here's questions people asked. And I will say something like, we answered all of these questions inside the membership, you can join at the link in bio, or, these were such great topics. It really helped people move the needle forward. Now, that piece of content is great because you can repeat it every single month if you want. It's a really good way to showcase your expertise, but indicate like, these are the kind of conversations that we have. And just a good way to give people a peek into your world without necessarily um, like blurring the lines between free versus paid, right? Because you want the people who are paying you to still make sure that they feel that they were given something that was worth the payment, right? So that's why I don't give away the answers. I just say questions we talked about or conversations we had inside our community this month. Another fun thing that you can do is connection posts. So this is something that's actually working really well right now in Facebook groups and on LinkedIn, definitely on Instagram too, but these are places I've seen. So a give and an ask, telling people in the comments, what can you give someone else? Maybe you have a free resource or you are an expert on something. And what is your ask? What would you like help with? And then tell people like, go respond to other people as well. That's working really, really well. And there's so many fun variations of that too. Maybe you've seen the ones that are like, for example, let's say like quilters. Like if you've been quilting less than 5 years, ask a question. If you've been quilting more than 5 years, answer a question. What those kind of posts do is they're not necessarily selling your offers outright, but what they're actually doing is they're telling people, hey, if I want to learn from not just her, but other people, I need to go to her content. So it's positioning you as that connector and as a source of something greater than yourself and greater than the client as well. So those are a couple of my favorites. And then storytelling, like why do you care about community? How have other people helped you? These stories are really, really important because not only does it give people a chance to trust you, to learn about you, but what you're actually doing is you're leading by example. It's hard to get people to buy a community or join a group coaching program or attend your live event or any kind of a group offer that you have if you aren't also telling them with honesty how other people helped you too. So, and even if your services are one-to-one, I'll add that as well. Like people want to know that what you are selling is also something you believe in through that process of support and accountability and having other people help you.
These are really, really good examples. And I feel like they're things that I have seen, but haven't put together as like, oh, wait, this is absolutely community building here. Like, especially the quilters example, right? Like, what a great way to get people connecting to each other and to expand the depth of knowledge, because one person who's quilted for 10 years may have a completely different experience than another person who's quilted for 10 years and have different advice or different tips and tricks. I think that is so, so, so smart. Do you feel like in the community building that you have been doing, you've seen other people start to like learn from your examples, or is it something that you feel like it kind of has to be taught to them?
It's funny you say that because I've really gone so deep into community building for the past year. Everyone knows me for that. And so every time that I have this like great community building content idea, I will do it and then I'll watch other people replicate it. And instead of, I could get mad that people are ripping off my content. Like when I did one a few months ago that was like, pitch your speaking topic in the comments of this post because my event host friends and like podcast friends are watching. And I've seen like 5 or 6 other people I know do the same post. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm like, this is great. Like if I inspired that, great. But what it does is it shows like other people are recognizing there's a need for this too. And, figuring out like a lot of this for each brand is experimentation. So what takes off for my community might not take off for you. And so like just figuring out what are your people interested in and going back to those archetypes. So, if you are a recommender and you do a couple of posts that are, drop your recommendations for your favorite Canva search terms for aesthetic graphic design, maybe like what do you search on Canva? Drop in the comments. That could be a great community building post for graphic designers, maybe, or content creators. Um, and if people really like it and that kind of post performs well, then okay, my community really likes recommendations. They like giving them, they like getting them. So it's also a feedback loop of listening to people. Maybe your people are very nervous to put themselves out there. So the kind of connection post that I might make about speaking or podcasting, maybe your audience is like, I will not. And like, no way. But maybe they are like, oh, like I'm definitely into the recommendations, or I'm definitely into going and cheering on someone else in their business today. So there's a part of it where you need to kind of test and see what you feel good about, and then also what people in your specific community are responding to.
I love that this is again, kind of an experiment because I tell people all the time that is all entrepreneurship is, right? Entrepreneurship, marketing, sales, right? We're throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing what sticks, and then replicating that as we go. And so I think it's so brilliant that you recommend like test out these different archetypes. Obviously, you're going to have ones that you're most comfortable with, but are there ones that maybe resonate best with your audience? I mean, it's something that I even talk about with my clients that I do branding for. It's like, okay, we know what you like and what you're attracted to and what feels right for you. Now, what feels right and attractive for your ideal clients, and how can we blend these two methods together? So I really, really love this. I want to like switch gears a little bit here because I know that you're hosting a summit. I'm speaking at this summit, and I want to know what like setting up a summit like that from a community building standpoint is like, and why choose a summit specifically for your community building?
Yeah. So I'm someone who never wanted to host live events. One of the businesses I own, it's a venue. We've hosted over 400 events. Within also that umbrella, I've hosted a lot of virtual events, including summits for other clients. And so I wasn't necessarily someone who started out like, I want to host these big in-person conferences and big events, but it became clear to me in testing smaller events that there was definitely a need and desire for it. And so my enthusiasm and excitement and vision for these grew like with my community's like involvement and excitement about it. And so this is our first big summit for our Power Table community, and it's called Stand Out and Sell Out. And it is all about growing and scaling your business, building up your personal brand, getting visible and getting seen online. And I'm really, really excited. So when it comes to community, like why throw a big virtual summit? I think that there's like several strategies here. And one is for my own like brand awareness, visibility, list building. I want to leverage other people's audiences. And this could be a great community building strategy. If you want to build a community, but you're like, no one knows I exist, go out and find other people who have the audience that you want and find ways to collaborate with them. And that is a great way to bring people into your world and your community. And so the summit is a really good example of like, for me personally, it helps to have brand awareness with other people who are like-minded and who have that kind of goal. And I want to leverage their audiences. And then for the attendees and speakers, something that I do that I build into every virtual event that I have is I always have live connection components, networking calls, ways for people to get connected. There's also a group. We have a Facebook group that's free for our attendees where people can talk, but I want to build in multiple points of connection for them. I don't just want it to be a passive activity where they can like watch the classes, because the classes are going to be awesome. The workshops and speakers are going to be absolutely phenomenal. But to me, that's not enough. If we're just delivering information, that's really not enough. So I also want to build in points where if someone says, hey, I came to, I watched Hunter's workshop and I have a few more questions. I want to have a community, a place where people can land to ask those questions, or they can just cheer you on and say, this workshop motivated me so much. I just want to tell her how much I enjoyed it. I want to have that space for that feedback loop. And then as far as the live components, this is something that I've listened to my community on. It turns out people really love. So I started implementing it. After testing it a few times, that I built that into every single thing that we do at Power Table is there's always live networking calls. People want to make new connections, get new referrals, get new opportunities. And the feedback that we've gotten is like, hey, this is actually highly profitable. We've landed clients from these calls. We've gotten referrals. We've gotten speaking opportunities. And so paying attention to what people really love and basically just replicating that again and again so that more people can, implement that or take part in it is really that community building component of the summit.
Well, I feel like the live event is something that makes your summit so different from many of the other ones that I have seen online and also attended. Because I feel like you said, if you don't have the live networking events or the live community where you can connect with people, it really does feel like, okay, well, I'm just sitting here and I'm watching this course of sorts, right? But how do I take it the next step? Where do I go from here? What if I have questions? And so I feel like, again, with community being seemingly a very big value of yours as well, it's so cool to see it permeate your offerings and this summit. And as someone who is potentially interested in hosting a summit down the line, I think it's such a unique way to differentiate yourself from other virtual summits, especially in this space where, again, a lot of us operate from our homes, right? And don't have that kind of easy connection that we typically would at, say, a live event.
Yes. And it's also leaning on not only what I found my community wanted, but going back to the archetype of like, naturally, I'm a connector. I like creating connections between people. So knowing that, I'm also going to make sure that we have those live connection points where people can talk to each other because I've seen how much power that's brought to my own life and to my clients. And so, really making every part of your community building practice fall back into, what do you believe? What do you know that you're good at? And what do you believe has helped you? Chances are you're already doing it and you just haven't identified it yet. So knowing that and identifying that can really be beneficial for you in your business.
I really, really love it. And I want you to tell us a little bit more too about some of the speakers that you have at the event. So everyone, I am speaking at this event. I'm doing a really fun workshop on the brand matchmaker method. I break down like my 4-part framework. I don't want to give too much away, but it is very, very exciting. Taylor, like let people know, who else do you have? What other kinds of speakers? What's it going to look like?
Yeah, so at Standout and Sellout, we also are doing basically like a choose your own adventure type of situation because there are over 60 events and workshops. So it's a lot. Now you could probably watch them all, but you probably don't need to. And I say that in that every speaker is amazing, award-winning, vetted, experienced. Like we have a 3-part review process for all of our speakers. So it is a very high caliber lineup. But actually, I think that the best results are going to come from attendees picking what areas of business they want to improve their skills on very specifically. So the 3 tracks that we have are visibility, which is day 1, profitability, which is day 2, and then authority, which is day 3. And in each of those, they're designed to help you with a specific area of your business. So day 1 is all about marketing, messaging, content for visibility. And then day 2 for profitability, we have sales and DMs and talking about conversion and like understanding, how you should have your offer set up. And then day 3 is the authority piece. So we do some content, but also PR, podcasting, learning how to speak, things along those lines. So some of the speakers include, let me see, Christine Corcoran is a great example. She's a sales coach and expert from Australia who's speaking on how to close high ticket sales in the DMs. That's a great example. I'm excited about that workshop. We also have Crystal Jacobo from the She Is Made for More community in California. She's going to be talking about building offers for, let's see, PR. Katrina Owens from Canada. I think this is a long list, you guys, but Katrina is going to talk about like how to build an internationally recognized brand and how to start getting PR features, how to find PR opportunities for free for your brand. So there's a lot of incredible opportunities. We also have speakers talking about things like how to know if your messaging's working, how to make your messaging spicier, how to generate leads using AI, how to use AI to create more free resources and lead magnets. So there's a lot of different topics, and truly every entrepreneur who comes to this, there's going to be workshops, no matter your level of experience, that will benefit you because they range from, those beginner foundations to very, very specific points of scaling.
Well, I now that the speaker pages and stuff are up, I've got to, because I'm a speaker, I had the early access. I got to go in and review what other people were talking about. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm very thrilled to be speaking here, but I am so excited to be listening to what everyone else is going to be speaking on, because there truly are so many really, really interesting topics and things that are so applicable to operating a business in 2025. So I am very, very excited. Anyone listening, definitely recommend checking it out. It's a free event. Taylor, there's the all access pass as well. So if you can't make live, you can always purchase that pass and you'll get the replays. But seriously, if you are looking for resources and to get connected with people who know what they're talking about in the space, but are also there to make sure that like you are successful too, definitely recommend attending. I've met some of the other speakers that are going to be at the event as well. Like it's a cool crowd. It really is. You've done an incredible job.
We know how to curate a room. Like, I'll just say that.
I truly, truly love it. Well, Taylor, I know we're coming up on our time, and I want to ask you my favorite question. I warned you at the beginning before we started recording what this question is. So if there was one thing that you could change in the entrepreneurial space, what would it be?
It would be creating more high impact community spaces at earlier levels of entrepreneurship. So a lot of these like truly in-depth, highly strategic conversations that have taken my business from, 4 figures a month or low 5 figures to having $60,000, $70,000 months and beyond is because I was in a room with like 4 or 5 people who were like, "Oh, hey, I'll look at your funnel," or like, "This is what I do in my business." And that truly has made all the difference for me. And I feel that that is often gatekept in, "Oh, you have to join my $50,000 mastermind for me to talk to you like that," right? Or you've got to be locked into a 12-month coaching container. And I just don't believe in that. I've never paid that kind of money for mentorship or community. And I think that something I would change is like just creating more high level, high strategy spaces, but for earlier stage women in business.
I really love that. And I feel like it's something that, so I'm 5 years in now, I would have loved to have had, especially the very strategic conversations from people who are much farther ahead or can look and be like, oh, well, here's why this thing probably isn't working. I've seen this before. Don't worry, I've jumped this hurdle. Let me help you out. Because I feel like that's what is going to continue to move business owners, especially women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, forward in the direction to kind of bridge that gap that exists for us. So Taylor, again, I'm so, so excited. Everyone listening, I'll be sharing more about my talk specifically over the next couple of weeks. Please attend the conference. It really is going to be top tier, I promise. Taylor, please tell people how they can get in contact with you and anything else that you want to share with them before we wrap this up.
Yeah, so I'm sure you'll put the link to Stand Out and Sell Out in the show notes. But if you want to connect with me personally, I also have a podcast. It's called The Power Table Podcast. You can also find our community on Facebook or Instagram at The Power Table. Well, on Instagram, it's thepowertable.co. And then if you want to connect with me or send me a DM, it is Taylor Smith Online on both Instagram and LinkedIn, and that's my website as well.
I love it. Well, everyone, that information is going to be in the show notes. Don't you worry. And Taylor, again, thank you so much for coming on the show and chatting with us today about all things community.
It's my pleasure.